Hi,
How are you, Shomir?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. You're running for state assembly. Can you tell us where you are and a little bit about your campaign?
Fantastic, thank you very much for inviting me into this forum. So State Assembly District 29 roughly covers a lot of Santa Cruz County, some little pocket of Santa Clara County, and then a coastal section of Monterey County down the way, all the way down through Carmel, but not very far inland. I live inland. There you go. So it's an interesting shaped district. I live off halfway in between Monterey and Salinas, right kind of on the edge of one of the borders for the district. And so I'm running for District 29 against the Democrat incumbent Mark Stone. And I have a few different things to offer from the incumbent. Notably, I'm a physician practicing in the area for about 8 years, 10 years in California overall, and have gotten to know the community pretty well from my years doing urgent care here and primary care practice. Also, I'm an engineer with a background in energy engineering, as well as high-tech, artificial intelligence, and a variety of other different things. So what I'd like to bring to Sacramento is maybe a little bit more fresh ideas. I'm also, just by the way, a father of 4. I don't know if you can hear one of them in the background. So I'd give an intro to the other members of this family. One of them's upset because she doesn't have her milk right now, but I think someone's taking care of it. Anyway, so yeah, I want to bring some different ideas to Sacramento. Notably, let's talk about water management. Unfortunately, the best option that we have right now is desal, since we're not going to develop any existing natural water resources for various different reasons, most notably the law, second, the water table concern. But so our only option really is on the table to get more water for growth and development of the community is to desal, which is expensive and produces some difficult waste. The waste, however, is recyclable, produces a whole new industry around it. And although the water is expensive, if it's your only option, you kind of have to accept that. There it is. There are no other options, just so people understand, for getting water into the community at this point besides desalination that are commercial options. There's lots of interesting scientific ideas, lab ideas, but none of them's capable of being scaled up in the time frame that we need for the water that we need. Okay, that's number one. Number two, on a statewide and certainly in our community level, is healthcare and how that mixes in with our crises of homelessness and the housing situation, if you will. So one of the primary causes of homelessness is loss of housing through financial problems and secondarily mental health. And we have a system in our state to help people who have needs that they can't meet on their own through their own financial means. It's called Medi-Cal, and Medi-Cal is available to everybody who meets the qualifications. Unfortunately, a lot of doctors don't accept Medi-Cal because of its reimbursement level compared to even Medicare and certainly the private insurances. And secondarily, a lot of doctors don't accept Medi-Cal as a payment because of the delay in payment. It's not a widely known concept, but in any small business, which just about every small physician is, you have a cash flow problem. And you can't tolerate extended periods of time with no cash flow or delay in your cash flow, especially in a low margin business as primary care, has sometimes as much as a 50% overhead. So the point being, we need to revamp Medi-Cal to streamline it, provide a little bit faster reimbursement. I think California being the heart of technology development of the world, certainly we have resources available to apply to fixing Medi-Cal in a little bit more modern way to provide automated oversight, automated evaluation of returns so that, or of claims, so that we can reduce the delay from claim filing to payment of the physician or physician practice. And that would solve an enormous problem of access to care. It really hits the heart of the issue with Medi-Cal and the community, and is not being distracted by multiple different other ideas. We need to actually pay the people providing the care, and then you can get the care that you want. So that's Medi-Cal, that's healthcare. We need to, if we have improved timing and payments, and perhaps an increase in payments due to the reduced costs and overhead, then we can recruit more physicians and provide more care, and that addresses the homeless crisis right there. Physicians are actually very interested in providing care to everyone, but they have to run a business as well. So they're limited by the amount of free care or lower income type care that they can provide, depending on how much money and timing and overhead it requires them to have. So anyway, rather than belabor that point, a quick fix of Medi-Cal with some artificial intelligence would actually provide us a lot of help that we need in the state. And it's right here. Then moving on to the homelessness issue from the perspective of housing, that's a simple basic economics question. If you have a higher supply, then your price of the product will go down. And so we need to address several issues that are affecting the housing supply in the state. One of them is CEQA. Another way to address it is to provide tax credits for more vertical housing in more urban areas. And those two ways of looking at it help in a number of different ways. First of all, you reduce, if you house people near their workplace, then that reduces their commute. Now, caveat, this is a comment that I am making before COVID. With the tech worker population now largely remote, and even healthcare going remote, there's a dramatic reduction in commuting that's happening. So we have to see how this pans out, how things will change once the COVID crisis resolves, as to how many people will go back to their workplace or how many will be settled in at home. Okay, so that's one issue. Second issue that is helped by improving this housing supply in more urban areas is reducing the damage to the environment. So especially this coastal community really cherishes the beauty of the nature that we live in. And we don't want to build more housing if we can avoid it. So if we keep people close to their workplace, then it's less likely that we have to develop too much of the land that we find so beautiful and pristine. That's the really fast summary of my platform. I think it's supposed to be 10 minutes, so I really kind of hammered it out. I have a couple more things I could say.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. You're in South Monterey County. That includes Salinas. Is that right?
It does not include Salinas. The district does not include Salinas. That's
okay,
District 30. That would be Greg Sweat.
Okay, you have the reservoirs in your county, though, don't you? Well, the reason I ask is you talked about desal and about water, and you know, in down in Monterey County, it was one of the counties that was actually pretty smart about it this last drought. They had reservoirs, county-supported reservoirs for water. The rest of the state didn't do that. The rest of the state was caught flat-footed, even though we all knew the last drought was coming for the last 50 years. So I'm wondering, I know you've said desal is the only real solution. What would you think about building more reservoirs and more water storage?
I believe there's, and you'll forgive my ignorance because I'm still new at this, my understanding is it's not allowed. Although, of course, that would be a great solution. And the reason that I think it's not allowed is because of a threat to some, I believe it's a steelhead, I want to say, I'm not sure. It's different kinds of trout that run up the streams. And so,
well, should it be allowed, I guess, is my question. Is that a solution we should be looking at, or are the environmental concerns overriding in this case?
Well, if I say that it should be allowed, that is going against the passion that the environmental protection people have against, or that they have a passion for that particular part of our nature, those particular fish and that particular part of our environment. So I'll be honest, from a personal standpoint, I've got two ideas going on in my own head. I mean, I respect the fact that we want to develop water resources. And I think, if you want to have a thriving community, you need to give them water. However, there's a part of me that says, why don't we make an extra effort to protect, these more of our natural resources in a different way? Why don't we protect these fish? I agree with both parties. And so avoiding that argument is perhaps the better financial decision, because the legal battle between the two parties comes up to no reasonable solution, unfortunately.
I see. And you see desal as maybe being a more environmentally friendly solution to the problem. Is that right?
It is, if you have, and this is the way it is with everything in this world, if you implement it correctly. So desal produces radioactive salt as a waste product. And so that sounds really terrifying, except for the fact that you can actually recycle that salt, and it creates a whole new industry around that salt. It has value, it has purpose in different ways. So it should be out in the open, okay? So it produces this salt, and it costs a ton of money to produce the water that way. That said, Tesla just is installing a huge battery facility in Moss Landing, and Moss Landing could be changed to provide desal as well as power generation through different means.
Yeah, I believe that desal technology has really come a long way in recent years. We're seeing a lot of solar power desal go online now. We can have carbon neutral desal now. So it's been around.
If I could say 2 seconds about that, and that's absolutely correct, right? Carbon neutral from one perspective. So unfortunately, the development of both wind and solar shifts the carbon load either to other places on the planet or to the future. So they're actually, if you look at the overall life cycle of both wind and solar, they are not carbon neutral, they're carbon positive. So my perspective is, I'll be honest, I'm not gonna take a side on the climate change debate. I believe climate change is happening, that's without a doubt. But is it man-made caused? Is it not man-made caused? That's a debate question that's still open. And the more relevant discussion, I think, is these toxic chemicals that are produced as a byproduct of production of solar and of wind are a more pressing concern, especially for China. Not us, because we don't do it, but it's shifted over to China. And I can't imagine they're very happy about that for the long term. So we need to shift energy focus. And energy focus actually solves just about every problem that we face as a society. And simply choosing a different energy resource. For example, thorium molten salt reactors, which don't produce toxic explosions and earthquakes like in Japan or Russia or even our own country in the distant past. We need to spend some money on thorium so that we can actually have a safe, cheap energy supply, and that resolves so many of our issues as a society.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much. We didn't even get to your second prong, healthcare, but why don't you tell the folks how they can find you and your website and hear more about your positions?
Sure. SB, the letters SB, and then the number 4, assembly.org. That's my website, and my email is vote@sb4assembly.org.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Banerjee, for being with us today.
Thank you very much, sir.